Yo, what's going on, E7 fam? I'm Sue, and this is my review of Astrum Design's New Moon Luna figure. For those of you who do not play Epic 7 and are unaware, Luna is the most popular character in this game's 7-year history. In fact, Luna was the very first figure that Epic 7 produced back in 2019. Unfortunately, though, it was as a prize that was only intended to be given out to tournament winners or random recipients during official events. So as you can guess, a limited figure release for the most popular character in the game is going to bum out a lot of people that really want to get their hands on her. Fast forward now to 2024, and Astrum Design unveils plans to make a 1/7 scale of the game's most beloved character. So for many people, this will be their very first chance to purchase a real figure from the game Epic 7. As somebody who's reviewed a lot of Epic 7's products in the past, such as art books and the absolutely dreadful Epic 7 Arise board game, I knew I was going to need to review this one as well, especially because I'm a huge fan of Luna herself. She's regularly been one of my most played characters for years, and I know that a lot of my viewers are big fans of the character as well. Speaking of my viewers, I want to give a big shout out now to ATK, Asmodeus, and Keiki for making this review possible. Thank you all so much for your support. And as one final warning before we actually jump into the unboxing and review, some of the camera angles in this video might be not safe for work based on your level of embarrassment, so probably don't watch this video at work or at school or in the presence of like your mom, for example, alright? Anyways, please enjoy my review and unboxing of Astrum Design's 1/7 scale New Moon Luna. When this figure first arrived at my doorstep, I was incredibly excited, but also extremely concerned. As you can see, the box arrived with dents pretty much everywhere. It was pretty badly beaten up. And I originally was thinking, well, if the actual interior box, the packaging for Luna, was seriously damaged, I would consider refunding it and sending it back. But then I remembered that this thing took over a month to ship to me, and a lot of other Epic 7 players in the US have already had their orders canceled from various other places due to the entire tariff situation that we currently find ourselves in. I figured at this point, I'm simply just going to unbox the figure and see how it looks before I make my decision. And as you can probably tell by the time lapse in the background, it took me something like 7 minutes to actually get this girl out of the original box. And those dents that, were basically on the outer packaging, that's what kept her locked in there, and I was unable to remove her without using some serious amount of force. And as I feared, the original packaging was pretty banged up, but the figure herself looked pretty intact. I normally don't sell my figures and keep the original packaging stored in boxes in my attic in case I need them for later. So, at the end of the day, it's not really a deal breaker if the outer packaging is seriously banged up. I do want to say that I think that the packaging is actually quite nice to look at. It's not nearly as nice as the figures I've gotten from Flair or Good Smile, but it's a serviceable setup with some colorful pictures of the figure on all sides. And I do mean colorful because the back of the box is just a huge picture of Luna's dump truck ass. Anyways, using a knife to get the figure open and removing her from the packaging, we can see a nice picture of Luna's in-game live 2D art behind where the figure originally was located. It also comes with a postcard of New Moon Luna featuring the same art. The base of the figure is a clear plastic with a metal rod sticking out of it where you place the figure's heel to lock it in place. I will say that the base feels like the cheapest part of the figure, and if you're not careful, it will very easily crack or get scuffed, much like some other cheaper figures that I've had in the past, such as Mashu Kirillite from Fate Grand Order. After that, we move on to the figure herself, and she's got a lot of pieces of plastic that you're going to have to remove before you can actually display her. As you can see from the close-up shots, she actually looks really good. I was very impressed when I got to hold her for the very first time. I personally am unfamiliar with Astrum Design as a figure company, and so I was afraid that the brand might be kind of cheap because I had never really heard of them. I've held figures before from companies like Band Presto and haven't been really impressed with that type of figure's quality. Luna here, though, I'm happy to say feels really premium. The figure has a nice weight to it, and running your hands along the boots, you could feel how smooth and high quality some of its components actually are. I was really impressed with Luna's spear itself, as the main polearm portion was completely straight and not bent like how I had seen in some of the still photos at conventions. The head of the spear is also really nice, having incredibly sharp and detailed prongs, as well as a semi-translucent tip. A word of caution though about this spearhead. It is incredibly lightweight in order for the figure to maintain balance, and you could tell from holding it in your hand that it most likely will break if you are not careful. And if the figure gets bumped or knocked over in any way, that could spell disaster. Please do not display New Moon Luna anywhere. Someone might accidentally bump her or knock her over if you want to keep her and the spear intact. Once the spearhead is on, we just simply snap Luna onto the base and voila! Here she is in all of her glory. Luna! Isn't she beautiful? Anyways, with the figure assembled, I decided to do some rather imprecise measurements just to get a general feel for the size of the figure. From the base to the tip of the hilt of her spear, New Moon Luna is roughly 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters tall for those of you that use the metric system. From the base to the top of her horns, she is roughly 11 inches tall or 28 centimeters. Her height from the tip of her shoe to the top of her head is roughly around 10 inches or 25.5 centimeters. If the 1/7 size scale is accurate, that would canonically make Luna somewhere from around 6 foot 1 inches tall to possibly 6 feet 6 inches tall based on her pose. That's roughly 185 to 198 centimeters for those of you in metric. So yes, for those of you out there who keep asking me in my streams, how tall is Luna? The answer is officially tall. For comparison's sake, here she is standing next to a standard 17 centimeter pop-up parade figure of Calliope Mori from Good Smile. This next one is her standing next to a personal favorite of mine, the 1/7 scale Miyamoto Musashi by Alter. Musashi is actually one of the larger 1/7 scale figures that I own, and as you can see, the Luna figure is still quite a bit larger. I decided after that to see how she compares to my two largest figures. The first is a signed copy of 2B by Flair, which comes in at just over 11 inches tall, and as you can see, it's roughly the same size as Luna if we don't factor in the hilt of her spear. In case you're wondering who signed it, it's none other than 2B's voice actress herself, Kira Buckland. Finally, I decided to compare her to my 1/4 scale Hakubi Ryoko by Freeing. Freeing, of course, being the company that puts every waifu in a bunny girl outfit for some reason. It's pretty apparent right off the bat that Ryoko is quite a bit larger than Luna, but I don't really know what I was expecting when I'm comparing a 1/7 scale to a 1/4 scale. Overall, Luna is a pretty big figure for a 1/7 scale compared to most of the other stuff that I own. Once I assembled her and compared her quality to other figures that I owned, I decided to take some shots of her from various angles to use as footage for this section here in the video, while also gathering my thoughts on other parts of the figure. The most obvious of which is, just like with Epic 7, Luna's chest and her ass are just absolutely massive. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but even when compared to my Miyamoto Musashi figure, or my Tamamo no Mai figures, the size of these things on a 1/7 scale is pretty crazy. And while her chest is big, I think her behind actually takes the cake, pun sort of intended. There's almost not a single angle you could shoot this figure from and not notice it. I understand why the back of the box now is just a giant picture of her ass. I was jokingly saying to a viewer that the way her spine is contorted, it made it almost look like she had a shelf back there. And for science, I decided to see if you could actually rest or balance coins on it. And sadly, no, you cannot. And this is largely due to her massive dragon tail that protrudes from her tailbone. I'm actually really impressed with the tail on this figure. It's incredibly solid and sturdy, and it feels like it will in no way ever snap off. It almost feels like when the figure was sculpted, that the tail was a main part of the sculpt, not just some kind of add-on that was attached later on or just glued to the actual base of the figure. The paint job is also really pretty on it, giving off a metallic shimmer and sparkle when put under the light. Honestly, the paint job on the entire figure is really nice in general. Her high heels have a gold trim as well as a painted ruby gem. Her leggings have detailed scales and more gold trim at the knees as well as her upper thighs. Her body piece is held together by a golden clasp with ruby accents. And as for her gauntlets, there is another ruby inlaid on the back of both of her hands, and each of her fingers is individually painted gold. As for the golden flaps on her side, these are made of a soft, flexible plastic, so there's no need for you to worry about any snaps or breaks here. The pink streamers that are coming out of her back are also semi-flexible with a lot of give to them, but I do think that if you're not careful, these might break. Her hair is incredibly detailed and smooth, being very solid and sturdy for the bulk of it. In fact, if you shine a heavy light on her hair or any of the white parts of her outfit, it actually shimmers and sparkles. Where things might get a little rough though is actually the tips of her hair, which don't have too much give, and I could see being prone to breaking or snapping if you're not particularly careful. Finally, let's talk about Luna's head itself. Luna is a tragic character in Epic 7, having seen more than her fair share of heartache. So it makes sense that they wanted to give her an expression that conveys how she is suffering in silence most of the time. That said, the facial expression on this figure is a little bit of a miss for me. It comes off looking like one of the cheaper parts of the figure, even though I don't really think it looks low quality. I think with a different expression, the face would have looked a little bit better. The eyes on this thing are really nice as well, but I don't think they're as good as, say, the eyes on several of my 1/7 scale Fate figures, such as Nero Claudius, for example. The star on Luna's forehead and her dragon horns are also incredibly well detailed. There's definitely solid build quality to them, but considering how thin and sharp their edges are, you could accidentally snap these if you're not careful, or heaven forbid, accidentally knock the figure over. Overall though, I'm actually incredibly happy with this figure. Epic 7 has been one of my favorite games for the better part of a decade at this point. Players have long been asking for merchandise for this game, and sometimes, just like with the Epic 7 board game, it's a huge miss. I think Astrum Design's New Moon Luna here, though, is a certified home run. The build quality, while not the absolute highest that I've seen or owned, is incredibly impressive, especially for the price point that I paid. I paid $147.99 in US dollars, and on top of that, an additional $30 in shipping. And for that price, I would say I got an absolute steal, as the components on this thing feel just as premium as many of my $200 plus Fate and Fire Emblem figures. There's some real weight to the base of the figure, and I think no matter where you display her, she is going to look fantastic. My only real cons are that I think that the face isn't as good as it could have been, largely, well, due to the expression that they chose, and the fact that some parts of the figure are fragile, and I worry that they may break over time. That said, that second part doesn't really feel like a con when you think about it. A lot of scale figures on the market nowadays have small pieces that could very easily snap or become damaged if you manage to tip the figure over. As long as you're cautious and display her in a spot where others aren't going to randomly bump into her or knock her over, then I think you should be fine. If I had to give this figure a letter grade, I'd give it an enthusiastic A. Finally, a very, very good piece of Epic 7 merchandise. It's not the perfect figure by any means, but this thing wildly exceeded my expectations, especially given the $150 pre-order price point on this thing. The only two things left now to do are to figure out where I'm going to display this girl, and also what I'm going to say to my friends and family when they ask me about said girl and her massive assets. And that's pretty much going to do it for my review of the 1/7 scale New Moon Luna figure by Astrum Design. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. And also, let me know, did you also order this New Moon Luna figure? How do you feel about it? I would love to hear any and all comments down below. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Later now.